Good morning, everybody. It's been a while, and it's because I've been in Indiana, but I've done some knitting down here, so I decided to go ahead, get on here, yap at y'all again some more, and at the end, talk about my excitement for the MCU. So, I bought myself a new mug to have in the basement here at Sarah's. Um, if any of y'all don't know, which I doubt, but just in case, I have gotten in this habit now that we're working from home of going to Indiana like once, twice a year, staying for month, 2 months at a time, especially like in February and March. So I just skip out on that weather in Minneapolis. It's when I look over, currently, I am looking out the back sliding door onto the patio and the patio garden that Sarah has created, which is where she feeds all the burbs. And it's getting nice and green out there already. Like the grass is green, the scrub trees out in the woods are getting green. Out front, the tree in the front yard is starting to bloom. The tulips have come up on the side of the house. So it is pretty much spring has sprung here, and it's still snowing in Minneapolis. So we're doing it this way instead. But wanted to show you what I've been up to down here. I knitted a pair of fingerless mitts for Rusty, Sarah's honey, out of the greens from my Avatar themed Advent scent from last year. Because green's his favorite color and he loves Avatar. So I took all of the greens and held two different greens together and switched out one color, like would switch out one and then switch out the other and then switch out the other all the way through it and knit him a pair of fingerless mitts to wear. Those are upstairs by his computer, so I forgot to get those and show you those. So, but that was nice because I got to use some of the Advent yarn, so it wasn't just sitting around, and I got to make something for somebody I love, so that was nice. Then from Majuri, I had knitted a while ago a cowl for her to wear in the wintertime, except it was one of my very first color work projects, and I used a singles, like a worsted single, and it was an acrylic single, and it was real splitty and real ugly to work with, not to look at. And the finished project did not make me like proud of it in retrospect, but Jerry did like it, and Jerry wore it a lot, and Jerry wore the heck out of it. And so she needed a new one. So I bought some new yarn and I made her a new one, and I like this one much better. And I'm about to cover my face, so okay. Oh, that color doesn't show up at all here in the basement, but that is what it is. But it is both of these are from Knit Picks. The color change is their chromid worsted, and the black is their stroll worsted. And they are both very nice yarns to work with. Very nice. And I think this one turned out much better. Like I like my stitches in it. The stitches are pretty even. Like the pattern shows up pretty nicely. I'm not looking at it and going, oh, this stitch here got hidden because you can't see it. I'm figuring color work out, and I figured out one of the problems is because I'm a continental knitter, and I really yank that thread tight over my finger. I have a lot of tension on it. And so when I knit with the color in the center, when I knit with the contrasting color, let's say, when I knit with the contrasting color, I do it looser because I have dropped the first color and picked it up, and it's usually only for a stitch or two. But anytime I'm knitting with a longer row, like 6 or 7 stitches at a time, I tend to tighten that up again, and then it pulls the stitches at the end and they disappear. So I knit this one inside out. So when it was on the needles, like this part was facing outward so that as I went around the circular needles, this got pulled. So the floats, oh, I am very happy with those floats. These floats are incredibly even. I think that looks great. Okay, I'm about to die heat stroke, so we got to pull this off. Always get up in the morning, start off warm. Start off chilly, sit down, get warm, pull this off, sit here for another few hours, and then I'm chilly again. What are you gonna do? Oh, I've got my Spider Gwen shirt on. Um, so yeah, happy with that. I'm gonna keep knitting color work because I'd like to knit a color work sweater at some point, but I need my color work to be even before I do that so that I don't have to worry about color work gauge versus other gauge versus will this part be too tight versus I have to get that color work mastered first. So I made that for Jerry. She'll get that in the spring after it's too late to wear, but she'll have it to wear next winter. She'll have a new one to start the winter off. I will also hopefully have her mittens. I'm knitting her a pair of color work mittens by then. Not while I'm here. That yarn is back home. I also brought 2 of my Stephen King colorways in my favorite sock yarn. It's from Bumblebee Acres Farm. And they're a little farm and they shear their own sheep and it's adorable. They have uh, an Instagram account and they're lovely, lovely people. And I love their coquette base. It is a very woolly sock yarn and I love it. And I get their Stephen King colorways because I'm a huge Stephen King fan. And so this was their February colorway, and it was called Red Rum, and it is the exact colors of the carpet in the Overlook Hotel. It is so awesome. And so I knitted myself a pair of socks. And the name of the sock pattern is V for Valentine's Day. And I didn't do it right because it's supposed to be this art. And then underneath it, it's supposed to be just this bottom part of the heart outlining it. So it was a V. And I did 2 hearts instead. And then I didn't like the way that looked. So when I made the other sock, I did the 2 hearts offset. So one is there and one is there. And then the other side I just made blank. But like there's the Outlook Hotel color, the reds, and then the yellows in the center and the browns. And there's even a little bit of green when you get up close. Yeah, it is absolutely. I don't love how the sock turned out fit wise. Like I did the size 0 ribbing on the bottom of my foot to pull it in. And it does pull it in, but it's still like this part here, the just stockinette on the legs is a little loose and they tend to slouch. But they're good like wear around when it's cold in the house with my Crocs on socks. They're not good put inside shoes and wear outside the house socks. They look really cute when I wear I have some leggings, that's the word I'm looking for. Leggings I wear around the house and they fit up over the leggings really nice. They actually look almost like a leg warmer when I do that. Okay, and then the second one, these were the January colorway, but I actually knit them second. And this was the Christine colorway, and I just made this sock pattern up completely. just wanted some texture in there. So there's like, it's a knit purl, knit 2 rounds flat, purl 2, knit 2, 2 rounds, knit 2 rounds flat, purl 2, knit 2 rounds, purl 2 rounds flat, knit 2, purl 2, 2 rounds, purl 2 rounds flat, knit 2, purl 2, 2 rounds flat, 2 rounds, knit 2 rounds flat, and then back and forth so that it creates a little scrumbly pattern. And then I tried making a German short roll heel, and it fits. I don't, eh. And I did my favorite toe, which is the round toe, because I do not like the toes that end up being like when you flatten them out like this, they're not round. They end up being I don't know what to call the shape, but it's straight up on the sides and then flat on the top. And I don't like those. I don't like the feel of them. They feel weird on my feet. Don't like the look of them. And I found this little umbrella toe on one of my patterns last year. And now, if it is a top down sock, they all end in this umbrella toe. And if it's a toe up sock, I found a pattern to make an umbrella toe from the toe up. So they're all umbrella toes. That's all I do. But so yeah. And then this is the two of them together. It's a real fun colorway. I'm not in love with the blues, obviously. Obviously, these are the colors I love. And the problem for me is that, like, these read Christine to me, and there's even this darker brown that's kind of blood, like when Christine hits somebody and squishes them to death. But I don't get the blues really. That's not a color I understand when I think of Christine. But that's why they're the dyer and I'm the purchaser. Because I don't. This is a bag my friend Jennifer made for me. It's my sushi bag. It's the only bag I brought with me. I am buying more bags because I have to buy bags now that kittens can't get into, because the kitten at home will just knock it over and crawl right in if there's no top. And most of my bags don't have tops on them because I didn't need them before. My boss, she didn't care. So one of the things I knit when I got here, I think this was one of the very first things I knit, was a little set of fingerless mitts to go with the hat that I made Lily. Both of the hats that I made Lily are in her bedroom, and I'm not going to go try to find those. She hasn't left for school yet anyway, so I cannot go in her bedroom. I still have to put the thumbs in because these were the first time I've ever done you put a string in and then you pull the string out, pick up stitches, and knit something in. If you do it in a sock, it's called an afterthought heel. And I never do afterthought heels because at one point, before I knew how to knit, someone made me a pair of socks. And it had an afterthought heel, and it does not fit my foot at all. Not even a little bit. Because my arch is too high, and the heel goes right underneath my foot, and it's gone, and I hate it. I can't wear them. So I have never used them, right? Like, never made anything with it. All of the mitts that I've made have either been just a hole, or you drop off stitches you build up a thumb gusset and drop off stitches onto a piece of yarn, and then you put those back on a needle and pick up like 3 or 4 stitches in the gap here, knit around and around and around. I've never picked up all the stitches, so it's going to be a new experience and it's going to be fiddly, and so I have just put it off and I haven't done it yet. Okay, last project that I'm currently knitting. So I bought a new bag. This is not going to be a knitting bag. It is going to be a farmer's market bag when I get home. But while I'm here, it is holding the biggest knitting project I'm working on, because it keeps any cats in this house from deciding to lay on them or chew on them. And it is going to be a tank top that ties at the top. And these ties you do with the provisional cast on so I can pick up those stitches and keep going and make it as long as I want later. And then what I'll do is I'll tie it in place and then I'm going to use extra yarn and just sew it together, like in and out and around. I'll tie it and then I'll sew it so that it never leaves and it won't come untied on me because I hate that. But it will still look like it's tied. And so this is the top. So you start by making just 2 triangles. And then you join the triangles, which is where I've joined them together right there. And then you knit the 2 sides flat for a length until they get long enough that looks like I'm knitting a bra. So you put it, you decide where you want it to be, and I want mine to be pretty high. And so my ties will probably be right there. And then you knit it a little bit longer till you get it to the point. And then once it's, past your boobs enough where you want it to be, it's a lace pattern and it knits up and it the lace pattern increases a few stitches so it flares a little bit and it gets real flowy at the bottom and it's super cute. And so I am knitting the length onto this one. The other side I only just joined plus a row or 2. So I'm knitting this one. I'm almost at the point, I think, where I want to start, where I'm ready to join in the round. Because when you join it in the round is when you start knitting the lace pattern. But once I got that one long enough, I need to pick up the other side and work on knitting it a little bit longer. I don't want it much longer because I want it to be higher in the front, but I don't care about how high it is in the back. I'm going to be wearing it. Basically, I'm knitting this to wear in my yard. I won't be like wearing it out places. This is for me to have fun in and get a nice tan on my shoulders. So I don't care that it's lower in the back and shows my bra because, oh yeah, I don't. This old lady is not going without a bra in this outfit. It would be pointless because the triangles will be up here and the boobs will be way down here. It's true. So, I've never liked strapless bras. I just don't. So, if I wear it out, what I may do is I've got some camis with like the little built-in extra reinforcement. It's not really a bra, but it holds things better than just flying around free. So I may wear a cami under it and then wear that over the cami if I want to wear it out somewhere, like to Thor Love and Thunder in July. Just a thought. Anywho, that's literally all of the knitting I've done. So while I'm here, I've knit one hat for Lily because I knit the other one at home. No, I knit them both at home, didn't I? No, knit both of the hats for Lily. So since I've been here, I've knit the mitts, Rusty's mitts, 2 pairs of socks, Jerry's cowl, and now I'm working on a tank. That's it. Oh, while I have you here, though. Nope. Yes, I'm going to talk about needles for a second. So, I like to knit socks on DPNs. I've tried all of the different ways. I don't like knitting socks on 9-inch circulars because the needles themselves are too small for my hands. Like I get all, don't like it. I don't like doing magic loop because that I don't. I've tried it. It just don't like it. I don't mind knitting it on two sets of circulars. So you have you split the stitches half and half, and you knit across one needle, and then you turn it and you pull it and you knit across the next needle. And then when you go to do the heel on just half the needles, that one needle is just sitting there and you don't have to worry about what's like DPN. Sometimes they can slide out. You don't have to worry about that. Um, but I have gotten relatively decent enough with DPNs now that I don't have that happen very often. And I have stopped pulling the wrong needle. If I'm really tired, occasionally I will still do it, but especially this yarn, this coquette sock base that I've been in, the stitches just stay there. They don't go anywhere. That is a very lovely woolly yarn, and they just go, we're still here. Just put the needle back through us and keep going. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So even when I'm tired, it's not frustrating because I just go and I go, oh, I'm tired. I'm going to quit for the night. But my favorite set of DPNs are the Carbons by Knitter's Pride. And I don't know what this black material is, but it's catchy enough to hold. But it's not like bamboo. It's not like you have the stitches stick and you gotta slides right off when you give it a little pressure. You do have to get a little pressure. Like you do have to, when you're knitting, you have to it up a little bit, but they slide right up really nicely. And the tips are pointier than bamboo usually. So these are my favorite DPNs, and I just ordered some more sets. I went to a store with Sarah a week ago, and they only had this length, the 6-inch length. And the 6-inch length is fine, but when I'm doing a hat or something, these are fine for socks. Great. But when I'm doing a hat for somebody with a bigger head, or you're finishing a sleeve or something, because I do, depending on what I'm doing, I do use DPNs for sleeves and stuff. I like the longer length, the 8-inch. So I found some for sale online, and I bought myself like 3 new sets. Other ones that I have that I inherited are, I have some bamboos from Cynthia. And currently, all of the larger size ones I have are in bamboo from Cynthia, like the 9s, the 10s, the 10.5. Those are all bamboo. If I ever knit a project with that I need a larger one, I will probably replace those with carbons as well. And have a lot of smaller needles that are these from Cynthia. And these are cubics also from Knitter's Pride. And they work fine, but I'm not a real fan of the square ones. Like after holding them for a while when they need a sock, I start to get a ridge in my finger from the ridge on these because they're square. So I have some of the ones I've ordered to replace the cubics. I've ordered to replace my smaller ones. And then two of the most commonly used sizes in hats are 7s and 8s. And the only 7s and 8s I have are the ones I bought when I first started knitting and knitted knitting needles. Needed DPNs to knit hats because it was my first ever knitting. And the only ones I have are these. And I think these are from Knitter's Pride too, but they're wood. This is the 7 and this is the 8 set. And they're so slick and they just fall right out. And also, I break wooden things. Like eventually, I'm going to drop one, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to snap it. Because I will. I've met me. I did break. I have broken a wooden knitting needle before. I don't know if it was a DPN or a straight, or if I had tried a set of circular needles that were wooden. I don't remember anymore. But at some point, I did exactly that. I sat down and I broke one. And since then, I have not been a real fan. And I had bought a set of I bought a full set of DPNs. No. I inherited one from Cynthia, and I was using them at one point, and I literally snapped one. So, carbons are my favorite. Setting this aside, and as we all know, I have a favorite set of needles. They are Chalgoos. This is the set that I inherited from Cynthia. These are the 4-inch tips, which I recommend. I had bought myself a set of 5-inch tips, and they're fine, but Chalgoo now makes an 8-inch long cord, which when I bought my set, I'm not sure that I had seen that was an option. It must have been, but I didn't see it. They don't come with it. You have to go looking for them, and I didn't go looking for them, so I didn't know there were 8-inches. All of that to say, I got a bunch from Cynthia. And if you put 4-inch tips on an 8-inch cord, you have the perfect size to knit a hat. So, 4-inch tips are the good ones. And every 4-inch tip I own, I inherited from Cynthia. I inherited a lot of tips from Cynthia. And that's the larger sizes down there. And these also go in here with that. And then I inherited a bunch of cords from Cynthia. These are, I've got them bagged up to keep them separate, like 8-inch, 14-inch, 22-inch, 30-inch, 37-inch, and 50-inch cords from Cynthia. I never have to buy any more Chalgoos in my life. I'm set. I also inherited from her little bitty ones for sock knitting, which when I do the 2 cords, when I do the 2 needle sock knitting, which I have one circular in front and one circular in back, I use the Chalgoos. Recently on Facebook, someone asked, knitting needle recommendations. And I, of course, had to hop on and say Chalgoo. The thing is, I don't just say I love Chalgoo. I've been happy with mine. I will give you reasons why I love Chalgoo. Chalgoo is brushed stainless steel. It's not aluminum. So it's sturdier than aluminum. It is not as slick as aluminum. So a lot of aluminum needles, stitches just go. But the brushed is just enough of a texture that it gently grips your stitches without catching them. I haven't had any problem with the joins between the needles and the cords where you screw them in together. I haven't had any problems. I do know at least one person, Biddy, who has had them come unscrewed. And I used to just screw them in and they would come unscrewed. But now I always use my little grippy and the T-pin that they come with and tighten them up, and I've never had one come unscrewed since then. And I don't have any problems with the joins. Like, as long as they don't come unscrewed, a couple of times when I'm in a hurry and I start a project still without tightening it down because I don't want to pull everything out, I'm just like, let's go. As I'm knitting around and around and around, this can come unscrewed just a little bit, and it causes just a little bit of a hole there, and the needles might want to catch on it. But if I make sure I tighten it down with the T-pin and the little grippy, they never come undone. I never have any problems with this catching on stitches when I tighten it properly. The tips are very pointy, so they're good for lace work, but they are not as pointy as high sharps, which Cynthia had a bunch of, so I tried out. And I've also seen other recommendations on YouTube, and they were right. High-highers are so sharp that if you are a person who pushes off with your finger, you can put a big old divot in your finger and get a bruise. I'm not a fan of that because on some projects I do push off with my finger. Not a fan of a divot. So these are very pointy, without so pointy they will put a divot in your finger. They are slick, but just a little bit grippy. There's no problem with the joins, and then the cords are really the answer. If you've had any experience with circulars and especially interchangeables, and they're getting better now because Chalgu has changed the game. But before Chalgu, they were just plastic, and when you stored them and pulled them out, they would still be like this from when they had been stored. Chalgus have a stainless mesh interior with a rubber coating over the top, and so you can store them all, and then when you pull them out, they go, and they don't maintain that tight curve. So they're easier to knit on. Like you're not having to push past that. So for a lot of people, I forgot what length it was, so which bag it needed to go back into. For a lot of people, the cords are their favorite part of the Chalgus. I like the needles. I also like the cords, don't get me wrong. But my favorite part are the needles, with the cords being the icing on the cake. Um, and that is why I love my Chalgus. And that is why I recommend them to everyone. And that's why I know that a set of interchangeables is like $100 some, and that's expensive. But in this particular instance, it's an investment that's worth making. You can do what Cynthia did and like buy extra needles so that you can have projects more projects than one going if you want. Like if something's stressing you out and you just don't want to work on it, but the next project you want to knit uses the same size needles, you can buy a separate tip and a separate cord and do that, or you can just buy a cord and unscrew the needles, put the end stoppers on so that the stitches don't fall off, and you're good to go. However you want to do it. They're the best needles. I'm always going to recommend Chalgus. Ride or die with Chalgus. They're the best. I never need another knitting needle. Like I see other people having ones that they like newer ones. Licky has wooden tips, and some people really like wooden tips. And wooden tips are fine, but I'm going to break them. So I don't want to invest any kind of money on something that I want to break. I've closed these indoors accidentally, and they get a little scuffed, but they don't bend. They don't bend. They don't get smushed. I've smushed aluminum ones before. These are the best. If you're gonna knit, if you're gonna knit more than a little, if you want to keep knitting, I recommend investing. Like, obviously, it took me a couple of years to figure out, oh no, I'm always going to pick up knitting and be knitting again. And once I did, I invested in the good needles. Thank you, Elizabeth Combeck. I love them. And I have not looked back since, and I won't buy any other needles. I may buy more Chalgus if they come out with different kinds. Like they're coming out with a new set now that the join here will twist. So it moves. So if you're knitting something really big, like a sweater or something, and you have to keep flipping back and forth, it will twist because that can get a little, you have to, in the stitches. You don't have to worry about that anymore. I may pick up a few of those at some point. But I love Chalgus. They're the perfect knitting needle for me. Coffee time. Sorry, didn't mean to slurp that. I hate that sound. So I apologize. Last thing I'm going to do is show you my this week back in Minnesota, starting Wednesday. So 2 days ago, is the Yarn Shop Hop in Minnesota. And originally, Sarah and I were going to drive back up on Wednesday. No, it started on Thursday. We were going to drive back up on Wednesday. We were going to drive around to all the shops on Thursday and Friday. And then Vicky and Wendy were going to join us on Saturday, and we were all going to do the thing. And then Rusty had to leave town for work for only like the third time in 2 years. But of course, it was going to be this week. So instead, I stayed. And now I'm staying till the end of April for sure. Maybe not all the way into May, but definitely the end of April. Probably coming home right before Doctor Strange. Because Lily has another dance competition on the 29th, and she asked if I was going to be able to go. And I can't turn down the kids. I can't. It's impossible. And while Sarah and Rusty were on vacation last week, Grayson was hanging out with me in the basement. And he's like, "Are you going to go home when mom and dad get back?" I'm like, "No, I'm staying another week, at least another week." And he's like, "Well, I would like you to stay, please." Grayson is. Grayson doesn't like people. So yeah, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll stay maybe 2 more weeks." But then I discovered that the kitten, the Rampager's um, little elective surgery to have her make sure there are no more kittens in our life, um, isn't till May 5th. That's right, the same Thursday that Doctor Strange. And so I told my kid that I would take her in. I would drive her in because I work from home, so I can drive her in and drop her off and then go and pick her up whenever she's out of surgery. But that means I don't need to be back till May 5th. So I'm probably going to be here all of April and come back, hit the kitten, Doctor Strange, and gardening all in the same swoop. Although we know we can't actually put anything outside in May, I can at least at that point start thinking about raking things and getting things prepped and digging up some ground and stuff for. I just can't put it in the ground outside because it's May in Minnesota, which means it's still going to be cold at night, right? It's June. We all know June. They say Mother's Day. Only if you're willing to go put blankets on shit at night. I'm just saying. Anywho, all of that was a giant tangent to get around to. It's fine that I didn't get to go to the Minnesota Yarn Stop because on the way down here, I made my own little yarn crawl tour because I'm like, oh, so I'm going to be driving. Might as well take 2 days. And I actually took half a day Friday and Saturday to drive. And I don't remember all the shops I stopped at. I stopped at 3 in Wisconsin and 4 in Indiana. There you go. But I will show you the yarn I got. So it's going to be out of order. This was the last yarn shop that I stopped at in Indiana before coming to Sarah's. It is also the yarn that I'm using to knit the tank. And it's the same shop that I went back to and bought the Carbons DPNs at last Saturday. But Emma's yarn, practically perfect sock. And this color is Foxy Lady. Bought 4 skeins of it, knowing I wanted to knit a tank with it. I'm only working with 3 right now. We'll see if I need the 4th. The schematics say I don't. They're not called schematics. The pattern. The pattern says I won't need it, but I never believe things, so I always have extra. And if I don't need it, I'm gonna knit a little. It's called a hatdana for my head, a little bandana that you can tie up, and I can put it in my hair and match my tank. And I'm going to do that. This turned out to be the perfect yarn for that tank because the tank, like I said, is lace at the bottom, and this is a really nice, tight, twisted yarn. Um, so it'll show up that um, lace really pretty. So this was a great choice, sort of accidentally by me. I was in the shop and I saw this. It was literally this yarn was in buckets on the floor, and I saw this color and I saw like at least two of them, and I got down in there and there were five, and I got four. The fifth one was, I think, a different dye light because it looked quite a bit different in the light to me. Um, so this was a happy thing for me, and I'm using it immediately because I did not want to have the thing where I bought the yarn and it just went on the shelf. I knew I'd been wanting to make a tank for summer, and I got done with all of the knitting projects that I brought for a month, and then I have another month, and I'm like, well, I want to knit something else, so just pulled this out and got in it. Um, I did buy one other skein of yarn at that shop when I was there, and it is also for socks. It's a County. I don't know how to pronounce this yarn. It's spelled Kauni, County, and it is from another country, Denmark. So I don't know how to pronounce anything on it. I don't know what the name of the yarn is. I don't know what the colorway is, but it was on a sale shelf, and it is in colors that I like, and it is a very woolly wool yarn, and it will change colors as you knit into a darker brown. And I went, I'll buy that. So that's what I got from that. And it's in Zionville, Indiana. I do remember that much. Don't remember the name of the shop. None of them. Don't remember any of them. Um, Up on the far other side of Indiana, there is a yarn shop, and I think it's called Black Cat Yarn Shop. I think, you know what? I'm doing this on the computer, so I have my phone. Do doodly do do. We can check. Do doodly do do do. Do 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 do. Do do do. Do 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 do. Do do. Sorry. Do 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 do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. The Black Sheep Yarn and Fiber Arts in Noblesville, Indiana, is where I got this. And what was, and I got Emma's at Village Yarn Company in Zionsville. So this yarn, so this yarn dyer is Brie Delicious hand dyed yarn, and I've seen her on Instagram for a while, and I've seen this colorway for a while. Um, but I just never got around to buying any of it. And this was in the shop, and there was only one skein, but I bought it. And you will see why. The color is called Corn Maze. It's from Brie Delicious on her Addie socks. Mm. So with just one skein, chances are good it will become one of my skeins that I add to my pair of socks for every day in October. So 31 pairs of socks. That will very likely become one of my 31 pairs of socks for October skeins. And then this one, I had never heard of this dyer, never. And this one also came from the same store in Noblesville. This is a DK weight yarn, the Mystic base. It's 100% superwash merino. It's I love this dyer's name. It's called Oink Pigments. Here's a little piggy. I never heard. I now follow her on Instagram as well. And this is called what is it? All the fall things. It was her November 2020 colorway. And yeah, yep, it's all the fall things. And so I know you're shocked to know I needed that. But this is probably going to be. It's very soft and fine and nice, and it's DK, so it's probably going to be a little something for me to wear in the fall. Oink! I love it. Did I buy anything else there? I think that's the only thing I bought there were those two colorways. So I basically tried to buy two skeins of yarn from every shop. And then knitting off Broadway in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So the day I went to Fort Wayne, I drove all the way to Fort Wayne to go to Simply Socks yarn shop. But they are only open apparently before the pandemic, they were only open on Saturdays and a few Tuesdays. And since the pandemic, it has become even like they're not open every Saturday. You have to check their website, except Google didn't say that. And so I drove 119 miles out of my way to go to that shop, and they were closed on a Saturday. And I was hot. And so I left a 1-star review, and they wrote back and they're like, oh, we're very sorry. And I went and checked their website. They're like, it's only on the website. I went and checked their website, and their sign on their door had said this too. And they were open the next Saturday and then another Saturday in March. And Sarah and I ended up going back. We drove up there and went back to when it was open because when I got there and looked in the door, it was an amazing looking store. And I really wanted to go back. And they were very nice in the reply and went back, got in, and I went and changed my star to a 5-star review on Google because it was amazing. And the second time I checked, they had gone and updated their Google account so that it said, you need to check our website. So nobody ever has to do that again because before they look at Google and assume those are the hours, they know to check the website. And they wrote their website out so you couldn't click on it and go immediately there, but you knew where their website was to go and check it. So they alleviated it. As soon as they had somebody have a problem, they fixed it immediately the best way they could. So we drove back up there and oh my God, it's a great shop. However, the first time I went, they weren't open. So I went across town to Knitting Off Broadway in Fort Wayne and bought, well, you're just a pain in the ass. This one keeps wanting to come unskein. 2 skeins of Bah yarn, Baah, in their base La Jola. I'm gonna have to redo this something. This is the color Poison Ivy. And this color is Gold Digger. And it's got a little green in there. See? So I'm gonna put those two together and knit some sort of mosaic or color work project where this will be the main color and the yellow will pop out of it. Don't know what yet. But I love mosaic knittings. Like mosaic knitting works with continental way better for me, my continental style, where I pull the yarn really, really freaking tight, apparently, way better than the Colorworks does. And so I really love, and also I just love the mosaic knitting really creates those very geometric patterns. And I really love that. I just love the way they look. So very likely that will be something geometric. But so I bought those there. Those are the only things I bought there. So that was my day in Indiana of buying yarn. So I got two, four. And I was doing good until I got to the Village Yarns Company and bought four of these and this. And I had actually picked this up to be the one skein I bought there. Then I saw that image yarn and was like, gotta have all of that. So that was Saturday, and that was my ramble through Indiana. But my ramble through Wisconsin the day before, as you can see, I did all of my own yarn shop hopping, so I did not need to spend any money this week in Minnesota. And the thing of it is all of those shops in Minnesota I've been to before, and I already have my favorite shop. I know exactly where to go to get just a great selection of yarn and with great indie dyers. I know my favorite and I know my second favorite. And my favorite is Amazing Threads, and my second favorite is the yarn shop in Stillwater. Darn It Anyway. Those are my two favorite. And Darn It Anyway has just it just like rented out the space next to them and made a big new room and everything. So I'm very excited to go back there when I get to Minnesota. But I don't need to go right now. I don't. So the third and final store I hit up in Wisconsin on Friday night was Fiddlesticks Knits in Madison. And I found a new dyer there too. Her name is Lady Pearl. And I bought her fingering sock weight. She doesn't have a particular, she doesn't have a, like she uses a pretty generic base. So it's just a 75-25 merino nylon. But I loved her colors and I love the name just because this one is called Put a Spell on You. I put a spell on you and now you're mine. So I couldn't resist that, obviously. Obviously. Hocus Pocus theme yarn. Sign me up. And then she also did one called The Child. And we know which child we mean. It's the Grogu. And really, this could have been a Lord of the Rings themed yarn. I've seen several Lord of the Rings themed yarn from other dyers that are like the greens for the woods and stuff. It's pretty greens and browns. And I've been looking at greens and browns for a while. And then she called it The Child. And I went, well, sign me up. And then from a different dyer, also at Fiddlesticks Knitting, this is Fangirl Fibers. And I love the name that she had of her shop. And then she had this sock set. And I went, okay, we'll do this. And this is an 80-20 blend. So it's 80 merino, 20 nylon. And it's a sock set. It's called This Is the Way. I'm thinking about knitting maybe Rusty a pair of socks out of this. We'll see. I am unsure. But you hit me with my fangirlness, and I'm going to pay you money. So I got those three there. Did I get anything else there? No. So that's all I got in Madison for these three skeins. And then I found a really nice yarn shop in a very surprising place. It was called West. Oh no, that's the name of the yarn. Ignore that. It's called Flaxen Fleece in Sauk City, Wisconsin, and really off the beaten track. And so when I used to drive to Wisconsin when my kid was little, and I was driving from Madison to Wisconsin to see my kid, and my car was old and rickety, I used to take this back way into Wisconsin because I could go slower and I was afraid to drive my car fast. And it's so when I was looking, this showed up on that back way. And so it's a real pretty drive that way. And this shop was there. And I'm like, I'll give this shop a try. And it's an excellent shop. Like it's a very, very nice shop. And they've got it set up so that if you are a knitter or a crocheter, there are sections that have really nice yarns for you to look at and use. And it's the same reason I like Amazing Threads is it doesn't cater to just one or the other, but they've separated them out so that when you're looking, because let's face facts, crochet uses a lot more yarn, and so you're not going to want to use the $30 hand dyed yarns necessarily to make a crocheted blanket for a baby. But they had really good high quality cottons and acrylic yarns to choose from in a section that was obviously for crocheters, which in Sauk City, which is sort of out in the middle of Wisconsin, you probably have a lot of crocheters as well as knitters. So, but then the wool they had really nice, high quality woolly wool, and some of which I picked up. This is West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft. It's a DK, and it's 100% Shetland Islands wool. And I had been knitting a set of, it's a type of, hang on a second, I have to check. I was knitting a pair of mittens with some Icelandic letlopi selbu mittens. That's what they're called, and it's a sort of um, selbu mittens are traditional Norway mittens. I don't know which country they come from. I know that they're from one of those Nordic countries. I forget which one because I'm a bad human being. And I tried knitting it with the Icelandic letlopi, but the letlopi is a single and it's real catchy. And while it's really warm, like I couldn't see the pattern when I was knitting it. The pattern would like that's the one that I ended up frogging out earlier this year because it sat for 2 years. And when I pulled it out, I'm like, yeah, I don't really actually like this. But this is a really woolly wool, and it's got a nice twist to it. So hopefully I can redo those Selbu mittens in this, and I'll actually be able to see the pattern. So I bought these. And then I also bought some Rauma, the 3-thread strict garn, which is, I believe, the DK weight. I found a set of mittens that are Rebel. They got the Rebel symbol, and they're knit in white and red, which is, I believe, the correct colors for Star Wars. So I'm going to knit those. And those will probably go to somebody, not me. I'll find them a home, but I've been wanting to use this yarn as well. Also a very woolly wool yarn. So picked up those, and those both came from Flax and Fleece in Sauk City, Wisconsin. I do recommend. They are a very nice yarn shop. And then the first yarn store I stopped at in Wisconsin, I don't remember the name of it. It was very small. It didn't really have any yarn that I wanted, so I ended up buying a bag for Wendy that says I crochet so I don't kill people, and it's just basically a little notions bag that she can put extra needles in, or like her stuff, and she can throw it in a bag with the project or have it sitting by her chair so they're not everywhere what if she starts a new project. So I have a bunch of those, so I got her one. um I've been going an hour. What are you gonna do? So the final yarn I have is from when Sarah and I went back up to Fort Wayne, Indiana, to the Simply Socks Yarn Company, and I lost my mind. I got I had bought a bunch of yarn at Amazing Threads back in Minnesota from a dyer called Six and Seven Fibers, and I bought 5 skeins to do a fade, like in a sweater, fingering weight yarn. It's what base is it? It's called the Alfalfa base, and it is a 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. And I want to do a fingering weight sweater in it, a cardigan or a pullover in a fade. Um, but one of them didn't fit really well. And when we were there, I saw this skein, and it fits in that fade much better than the skein I had picked. So I grabbed this, and this is a world where there October, a world where there are October's colorway. It's really pretty. So I'm very happy with that. And that will go home and slot into the other colorways I got. Pumpkin juice, Oxford, the Burrow, Gorse, and Postbox. And Postbox is the one, it's a really bright green. And the one next to it is purple with some green in it. And this fits. So it's still got the green, but it's the more browns and golds. So this will fit much better than the just green. Either that or the one that's next to it, I'll take out and put this in because it blends with the other colors. One of those is going to be yeeted and this one will get slotted in. So I got that. And these are really nice yarns. I love this 6 and 7 fiber. Like I went in that day when I went into Amazing Threads and picked up all of the other skeins of this to look at um, La Bien Amie yarns, which are from France. And I had heard about them for a really long time. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get myself some. And just like looked at their colors and was like, oh, but these colors. And ended up going with this instead. So that's how nice I like them. I also bought, I have for a long time been looking for self-striping yarn to make some socks with. And could never find colors. I mean, I found colors that were nice, but they never were like, oh, I need that. That is not as bright on the screen. It is, the orange is very orange in this. Like it looks faded in this, but this orange is very bright. And this is from Turtle Pearl Yarns, the Striped Turtle Toes. And it is a superwash merino and nylon. And it is in 2 skeins so that you can have matched sets of, you don't have to worry about have I used up too much. You use up one each. It also makes it easy to skein these up and knit 2 at a time if you want, which I never do because I do not get stuck on one sock island and I don't find it a problem. Like as soon as I finish one, I immediately cast on the other. Like just it's already on the needles ready to go. Because once you get that cast on, then it's nothing to pick it up. So I never have a problem getting stuck with just one sock. So these are going to be striped socks for me. And then I also saw this is um, so Simply Socks Yarn is in an old post office building. And so they have created their own fingering weight yarn called Post Yarn. And this is their striping sock. And this one is called Yellow Brick Road. This is also not nearly as bright. This is screamingly bright in person, like make your eyes bleed kind of bright. So I'm very happy with this. So I will finally get to knit myself some self-striping socks. in colors that I really like, and I won't end up picking up some yarn that I'm not really a fan of, or that I'm only mediocrely a fan of, in order to knit myself some self-striping socks. And then last but not least, I picked up 5 skeins of yarn for another sweater, because part of the problem is when you're fat, it takes a lot of yarn to knit a sweater, and I don't have a lot of yarn at home. An okay, in Cynthia's yarn, I could put together some amounts to knit sweaters with, but they're not in colors that make me go, oh, I want to cast that on right now. So I have tried to, obviously on this trip, I've picked up 2 different sets, and I am immediately knitting one. So I feel good about that. And this is the next one I want to knit. This is Dream in Color in their smushy fingering weight. So it's merino and nylon. And this particular colorway is called Cloud to Ground. I don't know why they call it that, but it's got reds and oranges and a little bit green and the gray. And then, because most sweaters I want to knit take 5 skeins, they didn't have another one of these, but they did have this. So that will blend in at some point. Like, I may put this in the middle. I may do 2 of these, blend this into the bottom of one of these, knit that, and then finish off with this again. So there's just a section in the middle that's just gray. We'll see. I will consult with people who are smarter than I about this stuff, because I have really talented friends and I use their brains. So that is all the yarn I bought, which is obviously a lot. That's why I do not need to be at the yarn shop hop back in Minnesota this week, because I did my own shop hop and bought plenty of fucking yarn. Oh my god, so much yarn. But I love it all, and I'm very happy with it. Um, and now that we've talked knitting, now that we've talked yarn, now we're going to talk marble. So Wednesday was episode 2 of Moon Knight, and time to buy Doctor Strange tickets. And I'll be damned if Marvel didn't almost make me miss buying my Marvel tickets, because I didn't sleep really well the night before. And it was a thing where I went to sleep and I was sleeping good, but I woke up because I had to pee. And then once I was awake, the back of my brain must have been going, tickets in Moon Knight, tickets in Moon Knight, tickets in Moon Knight, tickets in Moon Knight, because I could not get back to sleep the rest of the night. Well, I mean, I could, but it was, broken sleep, rollover, not good sleep. So I ended up sleeping in the morning. And Sarah's like, I finally woke up and picked up my phone. And Sarah had been stalking to see when I was online. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, bad night's sleep. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up. And I knew we were going to watch Marvel together, because it's what we do when I'm here, right? So I went and got my coffee and went upstairs, and we watched Marvel, and we got done. And oh my God, Moon Knight is so good. It is so good. And okay, I have loved every single MCU show for different reasons. And I've loved them because they are not all the same. And my favorite remains undefeated WandaVision, because of grief. Like that just, so the other ones are good, and Loki's my guy. And I love that storyline in there about learning to accept and love yourself. But WandaVision was the thing for me. And Moon Knight is the same way. Like, I love it. It is completely different in the fact that it's a new story. It's examining something new. Like, they have not picked one of the things they've already told a story about to tell a story in this. It is not completely different to me in the fact that it doesn't feel like anything else the MCU's done. I'm like, if you believe that, you're full of shit. Because the MCU all feels different. And if you think it all feels the same, then that's on you. It's not on the MCU. If you're like, well, all of these are just the same, they're not. They're really not. So is this different than the other ones? Yes, but all of the other ones were different too. So I'm really over critics and people who get screeners to watch and talk about, and Vance going, "This feels like nothing else the MCU has ever done. It's so new." Fuck you. They've all been different, and all of the movies since Phase Two was done have also all been exploring new tones, looking things differently. People just don't want to let go of the Ike Perlmutter years, and they want to act like it's all been the same because the first years with Ike Perlmutter were kind of the same-ish. I'm fucking over that. Just done 100%. Meanwhile, back to my point, I put my foot on the table, and when I gestured, my foot was shaking the table, which is why things were going wibbly, 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 wibbly. Meanwhile, I love Moonlight. I love it. I think it's amazing. I love the way it looks. I love Oscar Isaac's acting. Oh my God. Like thinking that like Stephen Grant and Mark Spector are two different people. They are nothing alike. And he manages to make them look different. Like I realize they style his hair a little bit differently, but that is not it. It's the way he carries himself. It's the way he looks, like in episode 2 when he walks out and he looks into the camera and he's very intense. Like Stephen Grant doesn't have that intensity anywhere in his body, anywhere. So I am loving this show. Um, so they let all of the reviewers see 4 episodes. And in those 4 episodes, there's very little link to the rest of the MCU. Like they're there. If you're a true fan, you can see buses going back with ads for the World Recreation. It's the council that they dealt with in Falcon and the Winter Soldier that gave Carly Morgenthau such trouble. Um, that global council, there's ads for that on buses in the background. So we are in the MCU very clearly. You see the villain, Harrow, use a purple magic, which they set up in WandaVision with Agatha. That purple magic is dark magic. So we're very clear. Everybody's going, "Oh, does that look like the Power Stone because it's purple?" No, it looks like Agatha's magic in WandaVision. Keep up, people. They very clearly coded magic as things. Orange magic is sorcerers. Um, green magic is Loki illusion magic. Red magic is chaos magic. So when you're watching trailers for stuff like Doctor Strange, pay attention to the color of magic that's being used because that will tell you something. Just saying. So the purple is dark magic, not the Power Stone. Or in the MCU, they're using the same way that the reason I love The Lord of the Rings. There is a world, and they use bits of that world to reference where you should be in the current thing you're watching, right? Like they use music that way in Lord of the Rings, and they do use music in the MCU, but they're also using other clues like purple is dark magic. So I'm loving it, but all of the viewers got to see 4 and they're like, "There's very little connection." I'm like, "You haven't seen the last 2." Now, I'm not saying that they will. They may very well go through and not, they may let this be standalone because they're introducing this new character. I'm fine with that. I don't care. I love the good story. You know me. But I'm also not willing to bet any kind of money that in the last 2 episodes, we don't have someone else like Blade show up because Moon Knight, Blade, and Kit Harington's character, Dane, from the Eternals, have had a run in the comics where they're called the Midnight Suns. So I am not, and we already heard Blade show up at the end of the Eternals in the after credit scenes talking to Dane. So I'm not willing to bet that we might, and it might just be a stinger. Like he might not show up in the actual show. It may be in the stinger afterwards. but I bet he shows up to say something to Mark slash Steven in that. That would be where I would put my money because they are all connected. So we got to see Steven call the suit and he became Mr. Knight. And I was watching a breakdown of it last night because you know me, I got to watch all the things. And they showed the scene where he pulls the, and I don't want to call them nunchucks because they're not nunchucks. They're just like fighting sticks. They look much more like batons, like Black Widow's batons, except without the sting in them. From behind his back. And in the Moon Knight costume versus the Mr. Knight costume, he pulls the blades off, but Steven's much more of a pacifist. So I think those are the blades, but when he manifests as Mr. Knight in a suit, what he gets are much more defensive versus offensive weapons, which I think is another brilliant touch. Just brilliant. Um, I just, and I've listened to some podcasts and they're like, oh, and very nice ladies doing a podcast. And so I was trying to give them a try, but then one of the ladies was like, oh, and Steven takes all the beating for Mark and has to patch up. I'm like, he never has to patch up. That's part of the reason he never knew what was going on and how much fighting he was doing as Mark, because he's got super healing because he's the avatar of Khonshu. Like he doesn't get hurt. Like when he falls to the ground and pops up and his jaw is out, his jaw pops back in because it heals. Like so it hurt when he popped back into it, but he's not left with a broken jaw. Right? Right? We're all on that same page together. That's where we are because that's where I am. I love it. But so we watched the whole episode on Wednesday, Sarah and I. We got to the end and we were talking about it, and I looked down and it was 9:45, and I screamed, shit! Because 9 o'clock is 6 a.m. on the East Coast, and that's when you could buy tickets. And I'm like, ah! And I came tearing downstairs and hopped on the computer and pulled up Fandango, and they charge extra for the tickets on Fandango. So I ended up, and you can only buy 9 at once. So I went just in case and checked the website of my favorite theater. And for once, tickets were available at when Marvel said they were going to be available, because they're usually available at midnight and their website has never done that. So it's always been a bit of a cluster trying to get tickets. But this time it was available. And so I jumped on there and I got 20 more tickets using their site versus the site Fandango. And I have now 30 tickets to go see Doctor Strange on May 5th. But Marvel almost cost me to not get tickets for Marvel. I couldn't believe it. It was terrible. Super excited for Doctor Strange. I understand it is a Doctor Strange movie, but I really hope we get a lot of Wanda because I've always been fond of Wanda since we very first met her. But after WandaVision, oh, she stole my heart. And with the little mini trailer they released on the day of when tickets went on sale, when we got to see the twins again, I'm like, yes, yes. Friend of mine also sent me, Carol, if you watch this, I don't know if you do or not, but if Carol watches this, Carol sent me a little image capture and it shows Tom Hiddleston as well as Patrick Stewart being in the cast list for Doctor Strange. I'm like, say Loki much? So, yeah, ready for some Marvel, and I'm killing time with Marvel till we get to the Marvel. Very happy. I feel like there was one last thing, but I've forgotten it. I don't know what it is. It was something Marvel related, but it fell right out of my head. Um, Oh, Miss Marvel in June. So, and a little Obi-Wan in between the end of Moon Knight and the beginning in Doctor Strange and the beginning of Miss Marvel. That's going to be awesome. So yeah, I'm very happy. I have talked about all the things. I have bored you to tears. This has been a live stream that no one has joined because no one follows me on YouTube until I post it on Facebook. So I'm going to end the stream now and let it process and upload to YouTube. And when it uploads, I'll post it on Facebook, and hopefully all you guys will watch it. I love you all. Bye.